What's your creepiest glitch in the matrix or unexplainable thing that's ever happened to you?
Silent scan.
I remember being pretty young, like 9 or 10, and I was the car park of a pub in England, Southend. I remember seeing someone in their teens in the window of a house, looking over the car park. They waved at me, and I felt like I knew them somehow. My parents asked who I was waving at, and I said just some lady in the window over there. Didn't think much of it. Fast forward 10 years. I was at my nan's new house. I remember walking into her room, which I never was allowed to do, going to the window. I then realized I was in the house looking over that same parking lot, and remembering that interaction years before. Then a girl around 9 or 10, who was in said car park, waved at me, and I waved back. I felt like I knew her. Could not explain it, and have never told anyone about it. It freaked me out. The sheer act of breaking the rule of entering that room tore through the fabric of space-time. Don't mess with Nan's rules.
Silent scan.
This happened around 1991. It's the middle of the night. I'm standing in my sister's living room, and it must be a full moon, because even though it's around 1 a.m. and the lights are off, I can see clearly. There's a mixing bowl with popcorn kernels in the bottom on the floor in front of the TV, and some rental VHS in a pile nearby. I hear a noise, and turn around to see my sister's normally very friendly Labrador retriever looking like Cujo. Fangs bared, snarling, hackles raised. Suddenly there's a bright flash of light, and I wake up like I hit the bed from a great height. I think that was a weird dream. Eventually, I fall back to sleep, and in the morning I call my sister, planning to tell her the story. But she preempts me by telling me about the weird thing that happened in the night. They woke up to the sound of the dog snarling at about 1 a.m. Her husband thought there was a prowler in the house, got a gun, and went to find the dog. She was standing in the living room snarling at the middle of the room. He couldn't see anyone, so he flipped on the light. No one was there. The dog instantly stopped snarling, and walked to her bed like nothing had happened. He checked the property, and went back to bed. We talked a bit, and I found out they watched some rental movies and, of course, we had popcorn. Why? My sister is a little woo-woo at times, so I decided not to tell her about my night. She lived about 450 miles away, by the way.
Silent scan.
Not my story, but my grandpa's. So he served in the Navy, and hadn't come home for 5 years. He finally got to go home, and on his way, he saw his old friend. Let's call him Wally. Wally was getting on his normal bus, and my grandpa shouted, "Hi," to him. But Wally didn't respond. But he didn't think much of it. Seeing how Wally didn't have the best hearing, Wally got on his bus, and looked my grandpa in the eye as the bus drove away. Later, after he got home, and was talking to his dad, he asked him how Wally was doing, and told his dad about how he saw him earlier. His dad was silent for a minute, and asked him if he was sure he saw Wally. My grandpa said yes, and his dad replied, "Wally died 6 months ago." I'm curious, if you don't mind telling me, how did your grandpa react to hearing this? I have absolutely no idea. He always leaves his stories like that, and then leaves.
Silent scan.
I died. I saw it. I lived it. Either it was another world with a version of me that died I saw, or I'm going crazy, but I died. We had a pep rally in school, and after it was finished we had to go back to class. Well, my friend and I were not into that, so we wanted to cross the street to Sonic. Across the school there is not heavy traffic, but if you don't pay attention you could get hit. Well, I remember walking with him, and he dropped something, so I went across the street first. I just saw a red Tahoe heading right for me, and I got hit. I remember everything. I remember gasping for air. I remember waking up, and sleeping again, then nothing. All of a sudden I was back in the stadium again, and the exact same words came out of the principal's mouth. My friend wanted to go get Sonic, but I was freaking out, was asking him everything. I thought it had to be a dream, so I went with him just to see what would happen. He dropped his stuff again, and I waited. To my horror, that same red Tahoe showed up. I told him that I'm going back to school. I ain't dying again. I can still see the other version of me on that street, just messed up, not even moving.
Silent scan.
One day when I was about 8, I didn't go to school because I was sick. My friend was supposed to bring me homework, etc., but he never came. My granddad came home from work, and he told me that friend was dead. I was devastated. That night I had a dream. I was with my friend at a playground next to our school, and we were talking. Then he told me that he is safe, and it didn't hurt when that car hit him. The next day my mother wanted to talk to me about that situation, and she asked me if I wanted to know what happened. I told her that I know everything, because my friend told me. She thought that my granddad told me, but he did not. He said that he did not want it to tell me without her knowing it. That night I had a dream again, And I was talking to him again. We were playing. And having fun. And he told me that he really had to go. And we won't see each other ever again. The next day was his funeral. And I really haven't had a dream about him ever since.
Silent scan.
1985. My ex-wife and I were sleeping. There was a small sliver of light coming in through the window from a streetlight, so the room and bed were dimly visible. Our black Pomeranian was at the end of the bed asleep. I dreamt that I woke up, reached down to pet him, and he turned into a glossy black Biv of oyster thing which opened up to reveal rows of gleaming glass teeth. I woke up to my ex backpedaling up the bed over the pillows towards the wall. I asked, "What's wrong?" She said, "What is that shiny black clam thing with the teeth at the end of the bed? Where's the dog?" We had had the same nightmare at the same time. This still gives me a chill. Sorry that your dog was haunted.
Silent scan.
My wife passed away a year ago today. Had some odd things happen, like a couple of old meaningful pictures show up that I swore were in storage. The strangest one was I vacuumed the carpet. And as soon as I was done, a diamond ring was on the ground right where I had just cleaned. It was like she was saying, "Hey, this one is real, don't lose it. This one is really lovely. I'm sorry for your loss." I hope finding these things brought back some wonderful memories.
Silent scan.
My friend Sarah was in a nightclub, drunk off her face, when she got an overwhelming urge to tell a total stranger that her leg hurts. It didn't. All a bit strange. She ignores it, but it doesn't stop, so she walks up to this guy and says, "I know this is crazy, but I've got a huge urge to tell you my leg hurts." "I know that's crazy." Again. "Sorry." But he bursts into tears. Turns out his dad had just died. And they made a pact before that if there was an afterlife he would get a message to him saying a totally random phrase. So there could be no mistakes. Which they decided was, "I've hurt my leg."
Silent scan.
So this has always bothered me. I was 13 years old at the time. And my dad was a coal miner. He worked third shift, known as the Hoot Owl shift, which was midnight to noon. As such, he got home around 2 p.m. and slept till around 9. Got up, had dinner with us, and left for work. My dad was always pretty gruff, and constantly yelled at us if my younger brother or I made too much noise, and woke him up after getting home from somewhere. Which as an adult now I completely understand. So one day I did something to wake him up. I forget what. Anyways, he calls me back to the bedroom, and I'm expecting to get a dressing down. But he just looked at me and said, "It's okay. Come over here and give me a hug." What 13-year-old boy wants to hug their dad? I kinda squirmed a bit, and he followed up with, "What if something happened to me?" And just laid there all grizzled and tired. I didn't hug him. That night there was an accident in the mine. He saved everyone on his crew, including the one person he went back in for. His was the only death. And I'm convinced he knew it was gonna happen. I'll never forget his eyes that day. If someone asks you for a hug, give it to them. I love you, Dad.
Silent scan.
I've told this on Reddit before, but here it is. I had a very important document that I only ever kept in one place. I kept it in the top drawer of a small filing cabinet. I never moved it, and would always see it in that drawer whenever I opened it for whatever reason. The day came that I needed it now. And I didn't sweat it because I knew exactly where it was. Well, I'd be damned if it wasn't there. Cue panic attack. I tore that filing cabinet up. I removed everything and spread it out. Flipped papers over. Dug through envelopes. Shook everything out. Shined a flashlight all through the emptied cabinet in case it was somehow stuck to the sides. I mean, it was not there. I can assure you no one took it, or was messing with me. I was so frustrated. I even looked through other parts of my house. But I knew it wouldn't be in any of those places. And it wasn't. I was intermittently going back to that dumb filing cabinet. No luck. Super irritated. I searched the rest of the house again and, on my way back downstairs where my filing cabinet was, I called out in frustration, "Okay, bring it back." I don't know who I thought I was talking to, because I was alone. But you guessed it. I found it in the top drawer of my filing cabinet where it should have been in the first place. I was relieved, and totally freaked out.
Silent scan.
I have a good one. I was about 12 years old, and woke up in the middle of the night needing to take a leak. I walked across the hall to the little bathroom, hit the lights, and was about to reach for the toilet when I glanced up and saw a face in the mirror. It was not my face. It was as if someone was on the other side, standing to the right, with their face right next to the glass, staring at me. I only saw it for the briefest moment, but it is seared into my brain. I screamed, and ran out of there to find my dad. Of course, my dad investigated, then calmed me down, or tried to. Eventually we had a prayer session, because I was so freaked out. Eventually I must have gone back to sleep. Fast forward to my 30s. I'd forgotten all about the event. One night while visiting, my dad quietly brings it up. Remember that one time you saw a face in the mirror? It suddenly came back to me in a rush of memory, sending a chill down my spine. Yeah, I remember. Well, he said. I sometimes think about that night. He looked down at the floor, with a serious expression. I saw it too. He went on to describe exactly what I'd seen. We have no idea what that was. Apparently when he investigated, he saw it, and had a freak out of his own. Apparently the prayer session was as much for his own nerves as mine. I respect him for keeping that tidbit from me till my 30s. But I kinda wish he never told me.
Silent scan.
I'm not superstitious. But there's this one thing. My lucky numbers are 317. And then my daughter was born on March 17th. 3/17ths. And then after I got divorced, and was nervous to start a new life, I ended up getting this awesome apartment. And guess what number it was? 317. Honestly, knowing that it felt like my daughter saying, "You gonna be okay," made my new start okay.
Silent scan.